Can we start out with having you introduce yourself, what branch of military you served in, rank and or ranks you had during your time in the service?
Yeah, sure. My name is Adam Crutchfield. Uh, I was in the Army. I served from 2004 to 2009. I was in the Army infantry, and yeah, I deployed twice to Iraq and Afghanistan, and yeah, that's me.
What made you want to join the military? Was it like something, like maybe after 9/11 that inspired you or
No, not really. My my dad served in 67, um, Vietnam. He did a year tour, um, 67 through 68, and he was Army as well. And he was in the Tet Offensive, which was one of the bloodiest battles in Vietnam. And so growing up, he was always real quiet. He didn't really speak of it at all. And he kind of stayed away from that whole subject. So I was always interested in it in general. And as I got older, I was hitting like dead end jobs. It was super hard to keep a job, like anything that paid okay. And of course I was young, so smoked weed all the time, having a hard time like passing a drug test. And I reached out to a recruiter, and he was like, "Come on, we'll take care of it." And so I went and hung out with this recruiter. He took me to a Applebee's that his girlfriend worked at, and served us pitchers of beer. And I drank like one of those drinks that has like a 5 hour window or whatever. And he was like, "Yeah, once you pee like 3 or 4 times, let's go." And so I did. I went to MEPS, and MEPS is where you go to get your physical and all that. It kind of like starts the process. And I went, and next thing you know, I turned around and I'm in Fort Benning, Georgia, in boot camp.
what was that experience like? Was it scary like you see on TV where they're like in your face, get up maggot,
Yeah,
this and that? And
yeah. I mean, when I was in, it was real different. I They brought a lot of that real brutal stuff back, which I think you hear about Vietnam. It was extremely rough for guys back then, and I think it cooled down a lot during the 80s and the 90s, because there wasn't much war going on. We had Panama, which was very underrated. There was a lot of guys that saw a lot of combat in Panama, but by the time that 9/11 had happened, they really amped it up. So the guys going through infantry training, it was back to like it was real kind of brutal to get you through it. And in the infantry, it's all one big process. So like in the Army, if you join, you can do like a basic. You could do basic at one place, which is like 8 weeks, and then you graduate basic, and then you'll go to another form of training, which kind of teaches you what you're going to be doing in the Army, for another extended amount of time. So you leave duty station, and then you start what they call AIT. And for us, it was all right there. The process was one big long hell, pretty much, for about 4.5 months, before you're out of it, and then you finally make it to a duty station.
so did you know, or did they let you know that you were going to go see combat before your
No,
over?
not really. So a lot of that's by chance. Back then everyone was pretty much deploying. So if you were infantry, you're probably going to go. there were guys that were able to dodge it. I don't know how, and a lot of the stuff that they do to get you in the army, they'll say like, when you are signing up, they'll say like, well, make a wish list of like 3 different places you'd like to go. So of course people put like Hawaii and, like these spots that are cool, Colorado would be one, or California.
Vacation.
And then you just, yeah, and then you just end up wherever you end up, it's wherever the army is calling for you. So I ended up at Fort Polk, Louisiana, which was miserable.
When from there did you go overseas, like to Iraq or Afghanistan, whatever was first?
So I got, and if I get long-winded, just let me know. So I got my orders from basic, and a lot of guys I went through basic with, I ended up going into my unit with, and so I was appointed to 2nd Battalion, 4th Infantry Regiment, which was it was part of the 10th Mountain Division. If you've ever heard of the 10th Mountain in the Army, they're a very historically known group. And when I got to Fort Polk, we were in a brand new unit. So they stood 2nd Battalion, 4th Infantry up, and they had not been an active unit since like way back when. I actually think, if I remember correctly, Abraham Lincoln was a part of 2nd Battalion, 4th Infantry. And so it was a very historical unit, but it had laid down for a long time because we hadn't been in much wartime. So they stood up a unit, which is it's kind of a rare thing. It means everybody that's going, they're starting this fresh unit. And we trained, and I think it was probably I was in training for like a year, and then we found out we were going to Afghanistan. So we went through a series of training that you have to do to deploy. One of which was at Fort Chaffee, Arkansas. I was in Fort Chaffee in the summer of 2005. While there, we were on a live fire exercise, and one of the guys in my company was accidentally shot and killed, which was pretty tragic. It sucked. I hadn't even made it to war, and one of our guys was killed on a training site. And then, it was the following, it's been a long time. So it's kind of, I have to kind of think about it. It was the following in 2006. So I joined in 2004, trained for like a year. And then in February, I think of 2006 is when we headed overseas.
Were you scared, like heading over there, knowing like I'm probably gonna meet some terrorists, like face to face, could possibly
Hell yeah.
there?
Yeah. Anybody that tells you they're not is lying. Because our job specific was, to hunt bad guys. That's what we did. And I mean, we call them bad guys. Over there, they're hunting the bad guys, which is us. So I don't really know. I mean, who's to say who's right and who's wrong?
So this was
But
Al Qaeda and like those guys, right? This is like pre-ISIS and ISIL and all that, right?
definitely pre-ISIS. Al Qaeda was going on, but Al Qaeda was in Iraq, and in Afghanistan, it was solely the Mujahideen and Taliban. That's what we were going after. But just to be honest, a lot of what it boiled down to, a lot of the fighting that we were involved in, it ended up just us occupying space was pissing people off, like it would anyone. And so they were fighting to try to get us out of their territory, and we were fighting to stay. So that's kind of how that went down, but the whole time I was in Afghanistan, it was the Taliban was our goal, And when we were in Iraq, Al Qaeda was our goal. So it was just two separate campaigns. They call them theaters in the Army, two separate theaters and two completely separate enemies.
So when you're sitting there, like occupying a building, what's like strapped to you, like your chest, your waist, like from like guns to hand grenades to like med kits or whatever, like what all are you carrying?
Right. So hand grenades, we never carried them. So that's kind of like what would I say, a fantasized view of what it's really like. We had access to them a little, and you train with them, but by the time you get to combat, the basic. So I was in a squad, and when I was in Afghanistan, I was a team leader, which meant that I had a squad leader above me because a squad is broke into two teams. You have an alpha team and a bravo team, and the squad leader is, overall both teams. And that squad is made up of 9 guys, 2 4-man teams. So the basic infantry maneuvering weapons would be, you would have a 203 gunner in each team, which is a grenadier. It's basically an M4 with a grenade launcher on it. It sounds a lot cooler than it really is. It's not really that cool, but it shoots 40 millimeter grenades. I think they were 40 millimeter. It's been a long time, man. And then you would have your regular M4 gunners in each team. And then you would have heavy weapons, which your heavy weapons would be, so you would have saws, which is a fully automatic, basically like an AR-15 that's fully automatic and shoots rounds as fast as they'll go. They fire off drums, so 100-round drums. And then you would have so you have the 249, and then you would have 240s. And 240s is a much bigger version of that. Shoots 7.62, if I'm remembering correctly. It's been a long time, man. But in your basic infantry line, that's what you would have in a squad. And then in each battalion, you'll have a company that is all the big guns, which is, they're usually motorized, which is in Humvees, and they will have gunners because they're packing the real stuff, which is the Mark 19s, which is a fully automatic grenade launchers. Then you have your 50 cals, and your ITAS, which I don't know if they still use ITAS or not, but that was basically a humongous rocket that would shoot, and it ran off of 2 copper wires, and it would go, you could have it set at a direct impact or an above impact, so it could go to the target and blow down on it, or it could hit it directly. But when I was in Afghanistan, I was in a heavy weapons company. For the most part, I was motorized, so I was on the 50 cal gunner, and we had dismounts, which carried all the other weapons I just told you. Besides the 240, we had saws, and we had M4s and 203s. But that's basically, what our setup was like.
Do you remember the first time, or one of the first times, that you had in a firefight, like with the enemies or any
Yeah.
groups or anything?
Oh yeah, of course. The very first time we were walking across this field, a lot of people have this misconception about Afghanistan, like it's just a desert, and that's very far fetched from the truth. It has a lot of areas that are very wooded. There's a lot of pine trees, and they grow a lot of apricots and stuff like that. They have lots of areas that are really green, and that's where a lot of your stuff will happen, because that's where they kind of hunker down and get ready for you. And the first time we were walking across this field, and we started taking fire, and I didn't really know how to respond. Even through all the training, I didn't really know, like what you got to do, what battle drills you go through. But at the same time, it was like, oh shit, we're being shot at. And I remember the sound of like what it sounded like, a round going past your head, the cracking sound. And then you figure it out really fast after that. It only takes one time, and then after that you're like instantly a pro.
Do you feel like your life flashes be, like in front of your eyes, like my family, my, everything, like I haven't had time to do this and this, or are you just focused on getting that target?
Yeah, yeah, you think about that every day. It's a morbid feeling when you're constantly thinking about death. Uh, but you think about it all the time, and you see a lot of stuff. You'll see, um, you know, your friendly allies, whether it be like the Afghan army or the Afghan police that you're supposed to be helping and working with. You see those guys get slaughtered, and you realize, like, man, that could have easily been me. And it really kind of like puts life, like the perspective of life, in a different light. It's really it's not a normal thing for you to feel that feeling all the time of this could be my last day. um but at the same time, it makes you a much better person too, because when you make it out of the to the other side, when you make it home, it makes you appreciate things a whole lot more. You just have a way different outlook on life. It never goes away. I mean, it stays that way. It's one reason why at my job I work as hard as I do, and I try to, I try to not ever like put things off. I'm always busy doing something, because I just feel like I was given a second chance, a whole lot of chances, a whole lot of times. So that part of it, I'm real thankful for. That and I'm not one of those people that was like, I don't think of like we were over there fighting this huge, crazy enemy. I once I was over there for so long, I looked at things from both sides. We were there trying to occupy, and in a lot of ways what we were doing was wrong. We were westernizing, or attempting to westernize countries that will never be westernized. And of course there's politics behind all that, but for the most part what we fought were, farmers and stuff like that. And I mean, they fight really good, and a lot of them were um in the original Mujahideen during the Cold War, and when they fought the Russians and beat them. So you were fighting a lot of really skilled fighters that really were proficient with it. So I have a lot of respect for the enemy, um, as well as I'm sure they do for us, because it's weird, man. You get in this meat grinder, and you learn quick to never like think you're quicker or smarter, because they've always got something ready for you. So, and I'm sure they feel the same way about us. I mean, if you could go talk to a Taliban fighter, he'd probably say the same thing. Like, I respect their fighting, because we fought each other really hard.
Did you ever get the opportunity to get close enough to talk to any of them without them like trying to blow your head off or anything?
Oh yeah, yeah. I've talked to a bunch of them, and it's weird. A lot of times you would have these cordial conversations with them, where they would meet in a village, and I mean, we would drink chai together and
Like
eat.
terrorists?
Yeah, flatbread. We would eat together, because all that stuff turns into politics. So it would be like, hey, these guys want to meet. And, you know, we would go. I mean, like I said, we had a mutual respect for each other because we were all fighters, you know. So that part of it was, that part of it, there's a lot of things that you read in books and stuff that aren't really how it goes, you know. And like I said, you know, the 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 fuel of it all, of course, makes everyone, there's a hatred there, you know, between countries, between our ideas, their ideas. But once you're there and they're there, you know, even though you're fighting each other, even though you're killing each other, there's like this mutual kind of, you know, you got respect for each other because you're all out there getting your asses shot off. And just because they're shooting at you, it doesn't really mean that there's a hatred there. It's just, you know, that's just the way it goes. You guys are fighting us, we're fighting you. But if you were to ask, you know, ask me, you know, what do you think about those guys? I'd say they're really good fighters, you know.
So when it comes to like meeting one in town, do you have to like check them out? Do you have to like have them expose himself to make sure there's not like a bomb, or like pat him down or anything like that? Or
No, not really. I mean, we and a lot of times the way you run into these dudes is you would be in a village and you end up, you know, running into a group of guys and they're not there, you know, just to kill you. They're just hanging out and you say, "Hey, so what's the deal?" And they're quick to tell you you're not welcome here. Um, you know, a lot of times the elder, the village elder will come out and say, "Hey," and he's just as much, he's like a leader of, you know, that cell that would be in that area. But a lot of what they do is really messed up because one of the reasons we were trying to break up their, um what they did as what they consider traditions was really, crazy things, a lot of incest, a lot of child rapes, a lot of, I mean, you see that go on. So, um, it takes a long time to realize that this is their culture, you know? And so what we say is so, you know, unthinkable in the United States. You know, when you leave the United States, there's a lot of other places in the world where really crazy stuff and, I mean, sick stuff that I still think is sick, you know, that's kind of the norm in other areas, you know. And it takes a long time as an American that's born and raised in America to even comprehend that. But we were always told to stay out of their, um don't interfere with their way of living. And we wouldn't, but they would they would quickly tell us like you're not welcome here. You guys need to leave. And you know, you'd be like, well, we're gonna be here, you know, regardless. And there would be no real bad blood there. But then on the way out, you know, you're in a firefight. It's just the way it goes.
so would they just have like AK-47s like strapped to their back, or you know what, like see these videos,
No,
these like cars riding around with guys just hanging out with guns everywhere and
no, a lot of that is stuff where it's like, a lot of that is where you see like, them parading around and stuff. Like that's them doing like a show of presence, mostly for the people that live there because they like to keep people scared, you know. But no, with us, it was, they would, I mean, they would sometimes, there would be guys walking around with weapons and stuff, but most of the time they would leave, they would go set up, you know. So they would try to catch you on low ground if they knew there was a spot you had to go through, like on a road, and there was high ground next to it. They would go and they would hunker down and they would be ready for you. So by the time you seen them again, all you're seeing are tracer rounds being shot at you, you know? So it's way more sneaky than that. And a lot of times they would use mirrors, like little compact mirrors that women do their makeup with. They would they would get on mountainsides and they would do like this with the sun, and it would make flickers, and you can see that for like miles and miles away. When you're in a big open ground and there's mountains everywhere, you can see that for a very far distance out. You can see a flicker, and that's where they're taking the sunlight, flickering it on a mirror. And a lot of times that's how they would communicate with each other, to let each other know, like, hey, when we get over here on this mountain, then I'm going to send you the signal that we're ready, we're in position. So that's how they would do like these attacks where they're hitting you from 2 or 3 points, or they would have little walkie talkies they would talk to back and forth. But those only reached so far because they were usually like the shitty, like, they weren't very good ones. They weren't like Fisher Price or anything, but they weren't very, they didn't have a very good distance they could carry. So they would, use those, they would use a sunlight and a mirror to kind of communicate to each other from real far distances.
Hmm. Do you have any like memorable stories from when you were stationed over there, whether they're negative or positive, that come to mind?
Well, there was a lot of positive we did over there. There we, a lot of what the media never really talks about that, but as far as our units, everything I've been talking about up to this point has just been my tour in Afghanistan. And when I was in Afghanistan, it was a very much a a I don't really know how to explain it. It was very old school fights. The battles were toe to toe. And when I say that, I don't mean that literally in front of, like, right in front of each other. I'm saying they brought the fight and we took it to them. And it was just really old school, man. Like what you would think when you think about Vietnam. If you when you see the movies, that's how all that over there went down. And as far as changing anything really over there, I mean, they weren't having it. They're very, very, very um, stuck in their ways. And I mean, I don't really blame them per se. I mean, if they Muslim radicalist or whatever, whatever. I don't care either way. What you believe is what you believe. What I believe is what I believe. I don't care either way. Whatever you believe, as long as it's not like unethical to kids or something like that. Um, but when we were in Iraq, man, we did a lot of good over there. Um, we kept in the winter months. We kept kerosene coming like at all times, to give to all the people that lived around in the area I was in. I was in the Dora Market, which was like the New York City of Baghdad. In Iraq, I was right outside of Saddam's parade field, so I was like in the heart of Iraq over there. Anytime kids got messed up, a lot of times in the winter they boil water, and little kids are notorious for knocking over scalding hot water and burning themselves like 75% of their body or more. And we would take them to the green zone and to these doctor's appointments and stuff, and get their wounds cleaned and bandaged up and brought back to their families in the neighborhood we were patrolling. Stuff like that. But that's all stuff that just doesn't ever get acknowledged, because usually it's like, this soldier did this wrong, or it's like the Robert Bales characters out there that you get judged by, but um got along with everyone really good in Iraq. I had a really, really good Iraqi friend. His name was Thamer Hamza Jassim, and he was like a brother to me by the time I left. He hung out with me all the time. He hung out with us, my platoon. He would walk all over with us while we patrolled. He would tell us if there was shady stuff going on. He would help us. I mean, it was crazy, because I went over to Iraq thinking a lot that it would be a lot like Afghanistan, where it was Afghanistan was always real. The tone was real dark. It was like those dudes were not playing. You know, they were there to fight, and they let that be known. And then we got to Iraq, and there was a whole lot of people that really supported us and what we were doing, and we did everything we could to help, and we did a lot. But um, in the end of it all, you know, I guess how much of it really matters, you know?
Right, right. Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, just gotta do what you gotta do and do what you're told and hopefully come back in one piece.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Um, Uh, while you were stationed in Iraq and Afghanistan, just a ballpark figure, how many people would you say, you know, your friends or people that you were stationed with that didn't come back with you, you know, in your squad?
Well, when we were in Afghanistan, our battalion lost two. Um, we had a lot get wounded, um, but we're able to pull through it and live. When we were in Afghanistan, no, I mean, that was when we were in Afghanistan. When we got to Iraq, we all made it out all right. Everyone made it back home. We got into several um, small firefights, dealt with a few IEDs, uh, dealt with some sniper fire. Um, and we had one guy that lost both of his legs in an IED. But for the most part, Iraq was a pretty good tour for my whole battalion. We all made it back home, and um, no one was killed. So that was a big accomplishment because we were there for 15 months. And there was plenty of combat there. A lot of it had to do with our own how we how we presented ourselves, and how you have to get support from the people, because there's no army that can go in and just take over something without having a campaign. And really what we were doing, we were never trying to take over anything. We were just trying to occupy the space while we were there, because that's what we were, you know, we were supposed to do. And we had a lot of people that were really cool with us. So, you know, the biggest problem was when I got out. You know, so many of my friends ended up taking their own lives, um, and drugs overdoses and stuff, and it still goes on. Um, but it was the after effects of it all that really took its toll on everyone.
Did you have anything happen over there, like getting shot or having like a grenade blow up near you, like busting your ear
Oh yeah,
like that? Or
oh yeah, yeah. I was I was in an attack on the side of this little what they call a saddle on the side of a mountain, and I was in a gunner hatch, and there was there was all I had was a chicken shield in the front, is what they called it. But they ended up later on fully encapsulating the Humvees, which they called the Pope a Pope mobile, like the Pope would ride around in. But when I was there, you were fully exposed, and we got ambushed one day, and it was an early morning, and my truck, the Humvee I was in, took a ton of freaking rounds. I've got pictures of it and stuff, but it took a lot of rounds, and an RPG hit the back passenger side of the vehicle, completely knocked me out. I had some fluid leaking from my ear, had a concussion real bad uh, for a while. My equilibrium was all off, and uh, it was a really close call. We ended up finding a couple of rounds that ended up in the truck in weird spots. One of them was in the back seat, which my legs were like right there. So I don't know how I ended up missing that one. and another one we found in a blanket that we call them a whoopee, but it's a poncho liner in the Army. It's a general issue blanket that you have. We found another round in one of those. So yeah, I mean, I had my fair share. When we were in Afghanistan, I got in endless amounts of firefights. Uh, that whole summer, we fought all the time. So um, it was a wild experience, man. It was crazy.
Was it almost like kind of like addicting, like the adrenaline, or was it just like
Yeah, I mean, the firefight part of it is fun. It always is. Um, there's no denying that once you establish control, once you have like control over the situation, like the beginning is always scary because you don't know exactly where you're being hit from. But once you figure it out and you lay down a battle drill and you carry out what you train to do, it's a lot of fun. It's just like hunting. It's like hunting deers that shoot back. Um, so it's yeah, it's a lot of fun. And when it's over, it's a humongous rush. It doesn't go away for, it takes a long time to settle back down, like 2 or 3 hours of just being on like super, super high rush is what it feels like. It's a crazy feeling, man. It's like if you were to get on the interstate and get on a motorcycle going 130 miles an hour. It's like being in that kind of a situation for sometimes hours. The longest firefight I was ever in was 5 hours long, and that was continuous the entire time. We were running out of ammo. One of our companies had to come drop in and bring us more ammo plus tack on to us to help with the fights.
did you have a hard time when it came to getting back to the States, adjusting to civilian life or not hearing gunshots and explosions all the time?
Oh yeah, yeah. That whole the whole PTSD thing is real, and anyone that spends um a deployment, anyone that spends any amount of time dealing with like what I was telling you about the whole like you could die at any time, being on high alert for so long that your body does not just go back to the way it was. It takes a lot of time, a lot of self effort, and reaching out for help when you need it, and not being afraid to admit that. That has a huge impact on uh, being able to readjust because when you come home, you're no matter who you are, you're kind of a mess. So it takes a lot of structure and a lot of doing things the right way because the army won't tell you nothing. They just say, "All right, well, see you later." And so it's kind of up to the individual of how they're gonna combat um, that whole mind game that it does play because it takes a lot of readjusting, a lot of learning how to sleep again, or learning how to eat again. Because like in Afghanistan, you just eat when you can, and you're not you're out in the field so many days in a row. It's if there's MREs and you start getting in firefights and stuff, then you might just eat once every 2 days, every 2.5 days, and even then you might just eat like something real quick that you just pulled out of an MRE um, and threw down, and you don't even really think about it. Food and sleep are like two things you don't even really think about. They're kind of like a less important, which is funny because as a regular person, that's two very important parts of living. So you have to kind of relearn all of that again.
So you're an artist as well. You paint and draw and so on and so forth. Can you talk a little bit about that, and when you picked that up?
Yeah, so around 2010, 15, my wife, we were in a antique store, and we passed by this like shitty landscape painting, and the price tag on it was like $1,000 or something. And I told my wife, I've always been into like drawing or creating, you know. And I told my wife, I was like, if I had the right stuff, you know, if I had the material, and if I really tried, I bet you I could do that. And she just kind of blew it off. Well, then that Christmas, one of the things she got me was this little art set, which wasn't much. It was just like some paintbrushes and some cheap oil paint, and some acrylic paints and a couple of canvases. And then back then I drank, and I kind of got drunk one night and pulled that stuff out of closet, and I was like, I'm just gonna try to paint a picture from Afghanistan. And so I did, and it wasn't good, but it was enough that it sparked my interest. So I started watching YouTube videos and self-teaching myself, and here I am now, all this time later, and you know, I'm constantly working on a commission, you know, for people all over, and it's turned out to be a really very productive and really rewarding hobby. And you know, as a true crime collector, even with you, I have done paintings for people in the hobby that wanted them, and they traded me, you know, some artifacts and stuff like that. So, yeah, so it's been a very cool hobby, and it's also been something that's very relaxing and fun, something fun to do at home. And the rewarding side is like, you know, making this stuff and then stepping back and going like, wow, you know, I pulled that off. It looks really good. And that's something I've never done, is like shortchange anything. So if I'm doing a painting for someone, then, you know, I'm really going to put all my effort into it.
Do you feel like it's therapeutic when you do it, especially when you're painting like Afghanistan or Iraq scenes? Do you feel like you're being drawn back in and you're putting, you know, probably more into that painting than anything else you do?
I do. It kind of it kind of makes some of that stuff sink in a little better, if that makes sense, because out there everything's so fast paced, that you don't ever have time to think. Everything is a reaction. So it's not like nothing is really a plan. The only thing you have planned is doing what you do day in and day out. As far as what happens, and it's always something different. Everything that has to do with being awake to whenever you shut your eyes, it is all a reaction, you know. So even when you're not in active combat, you might go weeks without a firefight or anything popping off. You're always ready for that. So it really, um, it's really helped me kind of soak in a lot of that stuff that I never really did. I never really processed much of it.
So with a lot of your art, and debatably, you know, your more popular pieces are the true crime like inspired, you know, Gacy, or you know, I think a Richard Speck and Whitey Bulger that you've done. Um,
Hmm.
you know, when it comes to like the true crime stuff, do you just do it off the top of your head, or do you just do it because it's like certain cases you're into, or I guess just people wanting, you know, random commissions?
You know, I love it. I love just like the whole process of why we collect stuff that has to do with these terrible people. I really like to study the face of someone who's done something terrible. And I think there's so much to say about that. For instance, like the spec, he just looks crazy as hell. So really focusing on and really trying to, I always start on eyes and work my way out on a painting. And if I get through the eyes and and the eyes look spot on, if I can look at a painting and tell from the eyes who the person is, then I know I'm in the right direction. And the rest of it, it becomes real fluid. But in the beginning of any painting, I always start on the eyes and I work my way out. And so, you know, that's one thing that's always drew me into painting true crime stuff, is I love the whole capturing the person's eyes. And it's weird, man. You can be painting someone uh like a Gacy's mugshot, for instance. You can be painting that, and then like halfway through the painting, because you study on this thing for so long, just looking at every wrinkle, every different tone in the skin, every shade. And the more that you study it, the more you really start to say, man, what really happened to this dude? He just looks like a normal guy. Ted Bundy's another one. You paint him, and it's like you really see the human side of whatever that person is. No matter how bad it is, they can't hide the fact that they were human. So that part has always been what's like drawn me in. Besides being a collector, that has always drawn me in to wanting to paint a lot of these horrible people.
Do you have any of the Gacy paintings that you've recreated on
I
you?
don't. I have plenty of photos, but I've sold all of them. I do have some paintings here though, that I got I'm trying to clear my throat here. I have some that I pulled down. These are some that I have around the house that I just haven't been ready to part with yet. So here, check this out. So this is one I did called Fear.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Thanks, man. And of course, it's kind of self-explanatory. There's a tornado, and there's this. I found a picture that is. It was a picture of a school bus, and there was a tornado kind of further off in the photo. But I was like, oh man, that would make a killer painting to make it like even more dark, and really try to bring in like the fear factor of being caught in that situation. So I painted it, did the school bus, and then in it I put these two little handprints just to kind of add to the oh my god. And another thing that's really cool is like the way that it's really hard to pull off like lights that are blinking like that. That all has to do with contrasting shadows. So you have to make it dark, and then you have to have a lighter trim coming in order to make that effect. But it's all stuff I've just taught myself over time. But yeah, this is one that I did just for fun last year, and I've just held on to it because I love it. And it wasn't a commission, so you know so yeah, I've just held on to it ever since. Another one I did that I have, hold on one second. This is one that I did for my wife. I might have to, it's a larger painting, but this one's of Dolly Parton. Of course, us living in Tennessee, we love we're not like, I'm definitely not a country fan, like a pop country fan, but I really do like the legends of country music. And I saw this photo of her, as a dark stage. She lit up really good, and I was like, oh man, that'd be a cool painting. So I made this one last year and gave it to my wife, I think on Mother's Day. But this is another one that I just had hanging around. I framed it, and it hangs up in our dining room. Plus, I've always loved the old pinups, so I love the lighting on legs like that, on any kind of a female that's being painted. So yeah, there's Dolly. And this other one I had, because you'd asked me if I had some laying around. This is one from a local, this was a movie that was made in Nashville. It's actually about a place in Ohio where a tornado came through, and it's a really grimy movie. It's called Gummo. Really, really grimy movie made by Harmony Korine, and it's hard, man. It's hard to watch. It's basically like the the tragic tale of like really poor people, and it's a really good movie. It was very artistically made, and in the end, they had this guy that was wearing this bunny suit, and Chloe Sevigny plays in it, and it's a raining scene, and they're playing "Crying" by Roy Orbison, and they're in this backyard pool, like above ground pool, and he's kissing her, and I always thought, man, that's a great scene. That'd make a really cool painting. So it's another one that I just painted, just for no reason, just painted it. And I also like doing the sometimes I like doing the I don't know, I can't remember what you would call that. Not like a full version, but where you have the strip going across it like an old movie reel. I like doing that every now and then. I think it adds flavor to a painting. But yeah, man. So been doing it for a while now. I love it. I always love it. I love it when a person commissions me to do something and I create it and they tell me how much they like it when it's done. It's a really rewarding feeling, and it's something I'm really proud of.
Yeah, I love your style of art. Like I've had you do, so many paintings for me. And before my stepmom passed away, I, had you do one for my dad, which she absolutely loved. And, I had Jeff Bertrand do one for her as well. And I have one for my sister, another one for my dad. I probably have 4 or 5 of your paintings tucked away, somewhere. And
Yeah, and like excuse me, the memorial painting I did for you. That's another thing is I've done a lot of memorial paintings, and there's a lot of people that paint that they don't really like getting into that because of um memorial paintings more than anything have to be really good. They have to be really on. Or if you're painting someone's child, that's another reason why um with realism, that's I didn't go over, that I mostly like to paint realism. I do a little bit of surrealism where it'll be a realism piece with something that's not true to the subject in the background or whatever. But I really, really like realism. And the reason why I like it is because some of my favorite painters like Gil Elvgren, Norman Rockwell, those guys, that's what they base their art on, and they're the masters. It's so hard to sit down and paint someone, and it is a very hard thing to accomplish. And as you're, when you take a photo and you put it up and then you start sketching it of how you want it to look, and of course I can look at a picture right away like a tattoo artist, and I can tell you that'll look better in color or that will look better in black and white. And a lot of times the reason why I like to do black and whites as much as I do, I love the old photo look. If it's anything that has to do with the old military, like, hey, my granddad was in the army, this is a picture. If I get it in color, I say, man, I can do this for you exactly however you want it, but I would recommend you do it in black and gray. And a lot of times that, most every time they're always more pleased with it that way.
how much time does it usually take to like just do, say, like a 10 by 12 or whatever next size up to do a painting? You think, would it be like 20 plus hours or?
I think that, so like the basic sketching takes a lot of time, that because I have to get everything right. And that normally is like a 3 hour or longer process, just that. And then when I paint, I layer it. So the first couple of layers, the first one is usually not really long, maybe like an hour and a half. And the second one, when I start to get more in depth into the details, I usually will spend, I don't know, give or say 3 or 4 hours. And then when I go back and touch it all up, I do another like 3 hours, something like that. So by the time it's over, it's usually around, 16 hours or more. But the process I use, just like when you've asked me, I'm like, give me a couple of weeks, because I like to break that up. And every time that I go back to it, I have a fresh look. And that's real important, rather than trying to just crank something out and give it to someone. There's a lot that can be overlooked, and you don't see it until you come back with that fresh eye.
Hmm. Um, so before we wrap this up, can you let people know where they can check out your art and purchase it?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Adam Crutchfield, like I said. And if you look up Adam Crutchfield art, which I think it's Adam underscore Crutchfield underscore art, on Instagram, that's the best way to find me. And I don't ever, cause like Facebook, I basically just keep that to just my friends and family. But and my Instagram, I don't put anything on there but my art, basically. So there's not, it doesn't have new material a whole lot. But whenever I do post something, it's usually an art piece, and that's mostly where people ask me to do commissioned work. So that's the best way to find me. And I'm not hard to find. Just you look me up on there, you'll find me. I don't know if I think I still have the Gage picture of the kid from Child's Play on there. So or not Child's Play, Pet Cemetery. So if you just look for the little painted dude of the Pet Cemetery, you can find me.
All right. Is there anything that you want to add before I cut?
No, I think we pretty much covered it. Um I hope that was I hope between talking about the army and the painting and stuff, that kind of gives you the material you need. Try to keep it interesting, but most of all honest, because that's just how I am. I'm a pretty honest person, so I don't mind talking about some difficult subjects like that, and getting through them. So yeah, man, I hope that everything goes well with your podcast, and I'm glad to be able to contribute to it.